My name's John Moody. Right, this video is about painting a watercolour coastal scene. It's actually in 3 parts because it took so long, so sorry about that. So hope you've got a lot of spare time. All right, this is what it's going to look like. I'll put a better picture up in a second. Right, now my channel is about art in general, and I try and do a different thing each time. So sometimes it'll be watercolours, sometimes acrylics. So I hope you take a time to have a look at some of them, and maybe the whole idea is to try and get other people to start painting. I mean, I'm 75 now, so and I paint all every day. I mean, I love it. So if you've got hours on your time, spare time, and you want to find something to do, then perhaps art might be for you. Okay, see you soon. Nice watercolor of a seascape. But what I'll do, I have drawn out the shapes, but I'll just do them a little stronger in case you can't see them on the video. But you don't really want to draw in objects too heavily, because when you've painted them you'll wish you hadn't. So here we've got a building and some sort of hangar barn. They might have stored various things, and we've got some 3-dimensional boats. Very important, you shouldn't have too many dead side on boats, it just kind of looks fake. So we've now sketched out, I mean I did it previous to the video, so I know what I'm looking at, whereas you want to take a bit more care over it. So when we've got to this stage, we've now got to think how we're going to paint it, and the obvious way is to do the distance first and come forward. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get some tissues, put them on there. Hope everything's showing on the screen. We're going to do the sky first. Now, one of these things that you can buy very cheaply from hardware shop is really useful. For many years I never used one, so I'm just going to fill it up a little bit. What it does is it keeps the painting wet without actually soaking it, because you don't want to soak it, you want to keep it damp. You need some tissue, you need your paints of course, and some brushes. Now if you're doing big areas like this, it's better to have a big brush, something like this, to wash on water and to wash on your paints. And you need a fairly big brush, something like this, to start putting in the clouds, the shapes and everything. Now in the sky, blue, yes, but you don't want to do all blue. You don't want it in the other colours. You want a mix of tones in there, and you need to kind of work forward. Now if you're using the wet on wet technique, where you wet the paper first, you definitely need to work fairly quickly to start with anyway. So I'm going to put on some water with this brush, get it in there. Try and cover all of it. Some artists leave little dry patches intentionally because they can kind of create interesting cloud shapes, but I've never found it worked for me too well. So we've got water on there, fair amount of water. Okay, and we're going to put in some colour. And I'm going to not start with an obvious colour. I'm going to start with an orange. Now it gets diluted, and even if you put it on fairly strongly to start with, it will tone down quite a lot. Now you can see that I've left some white areas. Okay, so now I'm going to move on and do another colour. We're going to do a purple tone. And while this is wet, you can keep adding, but you can see the speed that I'm going at. Now this board is at an angle, I would say about, I don't know, I'm not good at this, about 10% maybe. It's enough to make the paint run down. Okay, now you see I'm not really being over careful. I'm putting it in while I can. Okay, now we're going to change the colour again. This time I'm going to use a blue, which started off as a kind of cobalt blue, but it actually, because it's mixing with the colours that are on the paper already, it's changing. And you can see that some interesting shapes because it's running down the paper. If you've got a mark or two that you don't like, you really need to work on it now. If you leave it another 5 minutes even, you're going to have some problems. Right, I'm going to do a fourth one now. This is a nice dark, I suppose, I don't know, it's a royal blue, I think. I've lost a little bit of paper that comes with the paints when you buy them. I'm not very good at storing things like that, and I don't know how many of you buy things like cabinets that you have to assemble and then you think, I don't need the instructions. Well, I bet. Okay, now you might think, well, that's a bit dramatic, but you'll be surprised. Right, I'm going to let that, I'm just going to mist it a little bit, really just to keep it wet. Whoops, sorry, knocked the camera. Got a hair in there. Okay, now I'm going to, at the expense of possibly ruining this, I'm going to mix up the purple I had and the blue I had, the last two that I put on, and I'm going to put some clouds across. I'm using a smaller brush. You can see the paper's buckling. That's natural. It will actually straighten out, hopefully. Okay, now it doesn't look too good at the moment. You think, oh, it's ruined the sky now. But give it a chance. I'm going to spray that a bit more. You can, while it's wet, play around with it. There's a chance that you might be able to highlight some light rays or something coming through. It's just more like rain, isn't it? Pouring down. Rain's alright because if it curves it still looks natural. If it's light rays it's got to be dead straight, fanning out from a point like the sun. You can also take out, I'm just going to show you, you can take out little bits here. What you do is you dry your brush with on a pad, and then you can take out a bit of colour. It won't come out completely, but it will come out a bit. Knowing what the whole thing looks like at the end is a little bit difficult because it only comes from experience. Sorry, just dragged my chair. Now there's a puddle at the bottom here. You can see it. You need to get rid of that. It will feed back on you, you know. And you can see some nice shapes coming here now. Quite like that. I think I'm going to leave that, let it do its thing. Okay, so while that's going, we can work on something else. So this distant hill, mountain, coastal cliff. Some painting in just on the dry part of the painting. If you don't use too much water on your brush, you can leave little white specks which actually help. If it's too wet, it will fade in back into the sky and you get tide marks. So you just have to watch that to keep control of it. Now that's a bit more fainter there than here because it's a little bit further back, and you can add rocks and shapes to that when it's dry a little bit later. We've got a lighthouse, sorry, got a lighthouse there. The trouble with that is that I could have put some rubber solution on there or been very careful about where I put the water around it, and it would have been nice and white. As it is, it isn't, but it don't matter because it's in the distance. We can give it a bit of a tone. It's not a problem. Okay, well that's all drying and I'm not going to touch it anymore, and you shouldn't touch it after 5 or 6 minutes. You know, get it done, leave it. The water is pretty much the same application as you've done the sky, but I'm going to leave it till this bit here has dried more. What we can do is have a work on this building. So what I'm going to do here is use my smaller brush, which has still got some blue in it, but that won't matter, and just paint in this building. If there's some little bits of dry brush there, fine, leave them. It adds to the effect. I'm going to go back in with a dirtied orange which came from those colours, and drop that in, not all over, just in places, and then a stronger one of the more of the blue, put that in. Okay, get my spray bottle, just a couple of little quick squirts. Let it run. You can actually dab it and get a bit of different texture. And then put in a bit more. Right, we'll leave that to dry. I'm going to pick up a bit of black. Put a little bit of purple into it. A little bit of water on my brush. Paint inside. Again, if it drags and leaves these little white speckles, leave them. I'm going to go back in here and darken up the top. Anywhere I think might actually help the feeling of the wall of this building. Okay. While we're at it, I'll put a bit more of the brown, the orange from there, which has got darkened into a brown with the blue, and I'm going to do the roof. Okay, so we leave that. And we'll just carry on working on things. Let's have a look at something else now. We can look at this mud, sand, whatever you like to call it. We can do something with that. So I'll go back to my big brush and clean it and end up knocking the camera again. And then there's the beginning of it. Put that in. It's got a bit of the blue in it, just a tint. Every area apart from where I want something like water. Okay. Now change brushes again. Now we want more sandy, muddy colour. I'm going to start off up here. Put that in around the bottom of the boats. This is a mix of yellow with a little bit of what was left over from the sky, just to dirty it up if you like. It's a brown. It's a brown. And that could go in. I actually wanted a little bit of a white thing here, so I'll try and do that before it dries anymore. And down we come. Getting a bit stronger, mainly because it's closer. Take it right down. And the other side. And up over this boat. Okay. It's very hard to paint and talk at the same time. So if there's pregnant pauses, it's because I've suddenly concentrated on what I'm doing. Right, this is a little bit of lilac which I happen to have on my palette. So it just makes an interesting tone. There's no real details as such at the moment. I'm just leaving it like it is. Maybe I can play around a little bit, just get a little bit of texture, which I'm going to work on. Right, now believe it or not, we've done 20 minutes. I'm going to have to cut this down, I think. Okay, so just going to put in a yellow tone here. And here. And we're going to leave it at that point. And if you want to see how we develop this, please look at the next video, which should be up online almost immediately after this one. I'm just going to darken that down with some shadow bits. Get my tissue, just break it up. Okay, and that's as far as we'll go today with this one. Okay, see you in the second part. Thank you.